Well, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Today was day 7 of spoiler season for patch 3.20 and the Forbidden Sanctum expansion. There's a couple of interesting things that were shown today, including teasers of how Vaal Molten Strike will work, and also Vaal Smite. This is from the GGG official YouTube, and this shows Vaal Molten Strike in action in a couple of different scenarios. You'll see you've got all these balls bouncing around the world and basically wreaking havoc on a whole bunch of enemies. Essentially, Molten Strike already is fairly good for single target. This is providing it with a source of some burst clear, and this is Vaal Smite, and that is exactly the same thing. Smite, its biggest weakness is its inability to clear effectively. Well, this is what you call solid clearing. Now, of course, it's the nature of Vaal skills that you can't just spam them. You will be unable to use them all the time. You will need to primarily be clearing with Smite, but then every now and again, if you get surrounded, you've got Vaal Smite as an option. How good these are in practice depends upon the hard numbers on them, but these do look like they address some of the weaknesses of the core skills, which I think generally makes for a good Vaal skill. Remember that all of the links that you apply to your regular Smite will also apply to your Vaal Smite, and likewise for Molten Strike. Now, in terms of other news, we got a unique jewel, Storm Shroud. This seems to be very strong. Now, this has 10% lightning resistance, which is neither here nor there, it's all upside. Chance to avoid being shocked also applies to all elemental ailments. So this means that if on your rest of your equipment you can get 100% chance to avoid shock, this immunity will also apply to Ignite, Chill, and Freeze, but it will also apply to the alternate ailments as well, Sap, Brittle, and Scorch, which can be pretty dangerous, especially if you run the Simulacrum. I do think that this will be pretty good. The last piece of news is something that came from Jung Rowan, who is a racer who won the right to commission a unique item from one of the recent race events. And this is the item that he is creating, Nimbus Topaz Ring, which has some quite interesting mods that play around with projectiles. So it gives a fair chunk of dexterity. That's important. You've got to get that somewhere on a character. A little bit of resist, not much else. 28% increased projectile damage. Then we have the key effects on it. Projectiles return to you at end of flight. This is tremendously powerful because when they return to you, they can deal damage again. And this wording implies that this will actually cause projectiles that collide with walls to return to you as well. That may be subject to change. This hasn't been formally announced by GGG as yet. And then projectiles are fired in random directions, which is generally a very large drawback, but it is something that can be made manageable. So all in all, I think this is an item the vast majority of players will not be interested in using, but that does do some genuinely niche, interesting, and unique things. This is believed to be a drop from the Uber Eater of Worlds. Now, depending how rare this is, that might actually make it fairly cheap, because in trade-enabled softcore, there's a number of players who get extremely good at that fight and who are farming it for Forbidden Flesh jewels, and anything else they get is just a little bit of a bonus. Those players may end up with a lot of these items, and that may actually suppress the price pretty hard and make it pretty available for anyone to pick up in trade. That tends to happen with most boss drops unless they're very, very rare, and I don't know that this seems like something that will be super rare. Of course, I could be wrong. GG might have decided they wanted this to be a chase item. It feels to me like something that could have a drop rate around the 5% range, in which case it's going to end up being just 10 or 20 chaos by the middle of the league. The other news for today is that 2 days ago, when the main live stream happened, there were a number of updates to the announcement thread for Ruthless, and there's a few things there, like Kirak is going to sell the Unmaking Orbs for 1 Chance Orb, because it was just completely unreasonable to do any sort of respecking on the Atlas in Ruthless, so they're going to be much more available than they've been in the past. And there's a few other changes there, nothing particularly earth-shattering other than the ability to respec the Atlas. I will go through the Ruthless Alpha Atlas passive tree on stream at some point. If you've got a preference between that being done on YouTube or Twitch, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, that's all I've got for today. May your Vaal Orbs have interesting results, and I will see you around.